we wanted to make the puzzles more grounded than usual. We had I can spoil this, but in the demo, people he reaches a house where he needs to find the crayon, and in we we purposely put the broom there so you can click on it, and people tend to, okay, so I need a pencil, so I'm gonna get a piece of wood, break it, rub it on the ash, and make a pencil. So when we ask people, and how many times did you did that in your life? So it's very game logic. So you have to break in. It's like a lesson at the beginning of the game. So if you're in another place, in another person's house, you ask for a, a crayon.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Game Engineering Podcast. Today I am joined by Andre from Whalestork Interactive, and we discuss their game Night is Grey, which is a point-and-click adventure game where you collect items, you combine them and use on the other objects on the scene. And Night is Grey is driven by the story. It's a quite short game, roughly like 5 or 6 hours, and the story is quite unusual because it's quite dark and deep. It tackles some of the dark aspects of human life and the world we live in. And in this discussion, we avoid spoilers but discuss a lot of the aspects of the game itself, including the story, the genre, point and click genre, where you need to adapt for the players that kind of expect some things, but on the other hand, you want to make the game as much real as possible. And then the sound, how music was made, how scenes are created, all of the aspects of the development of the game. I hope you enjoyed this discussion.
So The Night is Grey is a point and click thriller. We created this game for almost 7 years. So it was I always wanted to create a game since I was a kid, but it was kind of difficult to get the team together and find someone who went along with it, especially if you want to create an indie game and you have no money and no experience at all. So you have to barge on people and try to annoy them till the point they say to you, okay, I'll go with it, okay, and you have to advise them that making a game takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. More or less that you have to learn from scratch how to design, how to program, and you have to find the right people. So we had to start with something that we knew that we could manage to create. So we went to the point and click genre because it's a good getaway for new players. The community is great. They are very have a lot of patience because they are accustomed to puzzles and story wise. So um, and it's the most easy to program type of video game you can find around. So we went along with it, and we started. I found a writer. It was my friend at the time which is our current head writer at Wellstark. Yeah, I worked with him in a creative agency. So I tried to convince him to create a story. I had a story in mind. So he went along with it, and we started writing. So we had to find a programmer, and found a friend that he has a cinema background, so he has with cameras, and but he it's completely different from programming. He never program anything. Just when he just um, had experience with websites, but I convinced him enough to learn from scratch and to learn Unity. So then I found my
Have you
yeah
aggregated all these people at start, or were they coming along after a couple of months?
yeah they came along in years apart
Yeah.
because I started writing with my friend Tiago and for almost 1 year, and then I found Illustrator, which was a longtime friend of mine. Pedro, and we started from creating some sketches, some ideas. Even the game, it wasn't like this at all in the beginning. It was an isometric view, like it was a 3D panorama that you saw it like isometric from the top down.
Okay.
And we did that for almost 1 year, and we had to throw it all away because it didn't felt right, um, to tell such a deep story in a way that was so gamey, so mobile gamey, as I ought to tell you. But then I convinced my brother, we had a music background, to make the music for it, and that's it. That's the whole team. It's very small.
So five people, do I count properly?
Yeah, five
Five
people.
people over 7 years. And these are, because of these are your friends, you needed, yeah, like I imagine you needed to push them like but 7 years is quite a long time,
Yeah,
right? So it was like reminding, hey, do we work on this, because it was spare time, right?
yeah, totally spare time. We did this after we just get out of our jobs at 7 p.m. Then we started working on this till midnight or two in the morning, and
Incredible.
it was quite difficult because not only had to convince them to stick on the project for this long, I had no pay for them. So
Yeah.
I just the promise was that when you sell the game, they get the share. So it was 7 years with no money at all, no experience in marketing. It was really such a weird project for us. Yeah,
But you made it. This is
yeah, we
incredible.
made it.
This is incredible. Uh, Let me ask you, have you there were there times where you just were kind of losing confidence in this? Because 7 years is a long time. You're doing this without pay. I find, like, I can suspect that you have some low points there with, like, okay, maybe this will not pan out.
Yeah, I think we had a big low point because when COVID hit,
Oh yeah,
we had to work without meeting each other at all. So we had to, and we were at the stage. It was almost halfway, more than halfway in production, and it was very difficult to manage people and the team. Just through cameras and voice calls, and it was very hard to convince them. Um, Not to convince them. They were always on board. They never thought they would leave at any point. There was always a good, optimistic vibe to the project because no one had made a video game before. So we were very excited just to release one in our lifetime. It was a very important project to us, for each of us. But yeah, there was difficult times, even to myself, uh, because there was a lot of work. As you know, we did the animation frame by frame, and we did all the scenarios in like 5 stages of production because we draw the scene, then we make a 3D scene over it, then we make paint over that scene, then we cut it to make the parallax, then we animate it over, and we have to do that for almost 80 scenarios, and animate all the characters frame by frame. And at the beginning, it looked cool, but then we realized midpoint that we had to do this for everything, and
yes,
it was hard. But
yes,
we couldn't change that. It's at the mid production, so we went along.
yeah. So I guess the experience is where it comes back when you kind of, when you design the story, you're already thinking about what will happen in the production. But for your case, it was just the first game, so you
Yeah,
first came up with the story. It was
yeah.
great, but then the reality kicked in with the
Yeah,
production.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay,
But
okay.
funny thing is that we didn't cut, because we delayed the game like 3 times, and we announced it in 2020. but it was in production for like 3 years before. We announced it will be released in 21, and then we pushed it back for 23, and then it released in January 24 this year. But we kept pushing, and we got asked if we have to cut corners to the story, but we didn't cut content. That's the problem, because we didn't want from the start to cut, because the story is very tight and it's very methodical in his bits. So we didn't add the chance to cut this part off, or this other part off. So we had to do it whole. So that was the part that we had to push back the release date, so we get all the content that we initially wanted to the game.
Yeah. And you mentioned why you have chosen the genre you chose. So the adventure game
Mhm.
where you collect the items and then you try different items on different objects in the game. Sometimes you want to connect them together to make something out of it.
Mhm.
This is a genre that is like quite old, right? And
Yeah.
it had some let's say glory days back in the day.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, but gradually the puzzles became so weird, and gradually over time I think the genre kind of started to die out. And
Mhm.
currently, as you mentioned, it has a niche, but it's not the most popular one. But
Yeah.
you mentioned that you had like a different camera in the beginning. So uh what were the what were the selling what were the most important aspects of choosing this genre to present the history instead of doing something more like, you know, you mentioned that in the beginning you had a different camera, it felt too
Mhm.
gamey. So do you feel the adventure game genre is the best for the storytelling aspects of it?
I think for the story that we wanted to tell, it was the most um, we had two choices: or make it like a first person kind of story driven gameplay, or we had to see it like a movie. We in the beginning we advertised the game like a cinematic point and click, because that's why we had the letterbox and the game. Uh, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out where to set the mood. So each chapter in the game sets the mood right at the beginning, and we had to make it very cinematic in the way that you're diving into this area, and the music, the sparsity of the music, or the music where the music kicks in. uh, we always interpret this game, this genre, make it more cinematic than the other type of point and clicks that we have now. We had to try to find, this is not there isn't cinematic point and click games, or more adult oriented point and click games, but they are less than the funny ones that they, as you said, they got more usual. When I think about Monkey Island or games like that, that you tend to go to the silliness and um, to make it more like a fun time, because this type of games, they tend to find them like a little bit boring, because you have to dive into the story, so they lighten up, adding a lot of comedy in it. But we wanted to try to find a more adult, a more serious kind of story into the point and click genre that I think we are missing out. Yeah, so we try to make something different on that category.
Yeah, we didn't mention this, but Night is Grey is an adult game. Like
Hmm.
it's not. It has like light and dark moments.
Hmm.
Uh, it's not that it's like not safe for work, but it's more like it tackles deep aspects. And we
Yeah.
won't be spoilery in this
Hmm.
episode because the main driver for the game is the story itself.
Yeah.
But I think your demo actually presents and sets the stage perfectly.
Yeah.
You
Thank you.
get you get you get to play the first chapter of the game, and it already presents you with like the feel and the tone of the game. Like I think that's a great selling point for the game to have a demo where you can actually feel what the game will look like.
Yeah, right at the beginning, we thought that right we're going back to the what I said before because of the this genre, people tend to find it a little bit boring. So right at the start, we wanted to begin the game with a bang. So that's why it goes out of the woods and he's being changed by something. There's a mystery. There's a house. What was he being chased with? Who are the wolves? Where the girl? So we had to throw at the player a lots of questions so they could get interest in the game and play the rest of the story. So that at the beginning was the idea. So to try to with the limitations that we had with the programming and with the animation without giving the game more action because we couldn't program it or it was not right to the story, but we had to squeeze all the excitement into the beginning of the game so people will get interested right away. Yeah.
This was in from the beginning when you were writing
Yeah,
the story. Okay.
that this first chapter, yeah, to set all the way.
What were the inspirations for the game?
Uh, we had a lot of inspiration. So I'm the art director, and I of course I spread my wings over the for everyone. So I directed them. So, but every person on the team gave us back their vision to the game. So Tiago gave me his vision for the type of the screenplay of the characters, and the music from Bruno. He gave me his type of vision also. We had two illustrators. The team is five, but in the beginning we had Pedro, who was making the illustrations, but he had to leave a little less mid project. So we miraculously found Teresa, which is our main illustrator right now, but because it was really a very difficult task for her to and daunting to get in the middle of a project with other illustrator drawings, yet she had to emulate the style and she didn't animate anything in her life. So you had to learn from scratch. So looking at the animations, getting praises for the animation looking so good, it's so John Bluth and so Disney like. It's a big compliment for us and especially for her because she didn't animate anything. It's in her genes. Yeah, it's perfect. Sorry, I deviated from the question.
No, the question was
And the inspirations, yeah.
yes,
So
and you
I
start.
think a little bit from Broken Sword series because we wanted to make a narrative, tight story. Uh, the Silent Hill games because I, not for the obvious reasons, but for the in the Silent Hill series, you tend to look at a puzzle and it zooms in and you get a puzzle where you have to play it in first person, and that was the inspiration to make the puzzles for the 90s gray and to avoid the typical just use items on items. So uh, we uh, we applied those we call them the zoom puzzles, so creative. And the zoom puzzles, it just you get the zoom and you play it in first person, and that's out of the Silent Hill games. Riven from the sequel to Myst was a very inspiration for me, and I tried to implement a little bit of kind of puzzles, those that was a little more abstract into the game. I think top of mind. That's yeah.
Okay. And to linger on the puzzles, it's it's quite refreshing to play this game because over time games kind of navigate like towards kind of established conventions, and you breaking into the field pretty much from everybody in the team, like not having experience making the game, is
Hmm.
uh, involuntarily probably breaking those conventions.
Yeah.
So, for example, uh, there is a section. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but there is a section where you have a map, and
Hmm.
you would kind of expect to know, like, have a pointer on the map. Oh, here you are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then in the game, there is no pointer, like a magic pointer where you are, because if you actually use a map in real
Yeah.
life, like not
Exactly.
Google Maps, but like real
Yeah.
life, you don't have a pointer. So, and then you have a puzzle out of this, which is kind of, it's a great thing to play a game once in a time, like play a game that will break the conventions that you're accustomed to, and refresh your memory, and refresh, like it's like a refreshing experience to do this.
Yeah. We got lots of praise and lots of hate with that puzzle from the map because all players tend to uh, get reminiscent from the old games and have fun, like writing the map on a piece of paper. Because, like you said, the gram doesn't have like a magic pointer over the map. Is just opening the map and look at it. Um, and some people got frustrated. Some people, we got emails and messages that saying lots of praise because it reminded them of the games that actually challenge you, and you had to write a map. And when they wrote the map on a piece of paper, they got really satisfied because they achieved something. It's like beating the game. I'm gonna get you on the corner. I'm gonna write the map. I'm gonna finish this. I'm gonna find every corner of the map. Yeah, there was a lot of self-conscious tropes on the point and click that we wanted to break, like the character in this type of game. Normally, you tend to gather lots of items, lots and lots, and you reach the end of the game with loads of items, and you tend to go to the frustration of using everything on everything, because okay, the piece of gum on this pile of dirt, and you get very silly on that. So from the start, we wanted the main character to drop things that he thinks he doesn't need it, just to minimize the frustration of this kind of trope on point and clicks.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
and
and
here,
we wanted to make the puzzles more grounded than usual. We had, I can spoil this, but in the demo, people he reaches a house where he needs to find the crayon, and in we we purposely put the broom there so you can click on it, and people tend to, okay, so I need a pencil, so I'm going to get a piece of wood, break it, rub it on the ash, and make a pencil. So when we ask people, and how many times did you did that in your life? So it's very game logic. So you have to break in. It's like a lesson at the beginning of the game. So if you're in another place, in another person's house, you ask for a crayon. You don't go rummage on the drawers of the persons uh, that lives there. So uh, that's kind of type of logic that we established, and we ran with it all the games. So the puzzles are very ground thinking, like.
yeah, they're grounded, much more grounded than usual, and especially more grounded than like the silly kind of
Yeah.
comedy oriented adventure games. And one thing you mentioned I loved about the Night is Grey, the dispensing of unused items. So first of all, you limit the search space. So you limit this situation when you're trying every object on every other thing, but also you ground this in the narrative, and this is very rare. Like
Yeah.
in some games, you do see the situation when you have a lot of items and then you're thrown somewhere and you kind of lose all the items and you like, well, whatever. But here, every time when you were using an item, you Graham, which is the main character, either told you, "Oh, I'm not gonna use that," or it
Yeah,
broke
yeah,
trying to do
exactly.
this,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
things like that.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
How?
I'm glad that you noticed that because it took a lot of work. And for another reason that I can't say it's spoilery, but it was very difficult to manage all the items because the items, the way that you gather items and you the reason that you get rid of them, it's embedded in the story. So it's very difficult to manage and get reasons and logical reasons. So the character drops them, or they break, or they just ran out, like the tape. Uh, So normally, when you see people playing the game at streams, they get surprised that you use the duct tape, and the duct tape is still there on the because normally in this type of games that you use the tape, that's it. But no, the tape has more tape to it, so you keep using it till it ran out. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was the type of grounded logic to everything, like when you go to the trash, he doesn't want to touch the trash, but he has to have a reason to go to the trash. It's like in
yeah.
real life, you don't go to the trash and find something that, oh, okay, there's a bottle here, I'm going to keep it. No, you have to have a reason to keep the trash that you find. Yeah.
It's an interesting play from your end, from the design perspective, where you're trying. On one hand, you're designing a game, so you expect players to do playery things, like
Yeah,
clicking on trash things,
yeah,
and expecting to find things there.
yeah.
On the other hand, you're trying to mimic the real life, and but therefore breaking the player conventions. Do you
Mhm.
have something like a learnings from this? How far can you go with the breaking conventions?
Yeah, that's a good question because we there are a lot of um, we wanted to make that from the beginning to be very grounded on the reasons that you get stuff. But we know that players are playing a game for to having fun, but they tend to do stuff. And when you limit them to, okay, I want to go to the trash, and the character says, I don't want to go to the trash because I don't have a reason to go there. And this frustrates some players because they want to have the liberty to do whatever they want. That's why they are playing a game. But narratively, it's difficult to just um, you lose some part of the credibility of the story where you don't limit the player to do such types of things because he's going to go trashing everything, grabbing everything. It's kind of silly. There's a part of the game that we purposely done to mock this type of tropes also, where you can right click to to inspect stuff, and if you inspect it, this type of gram always speaks out loud, okay, and if you and the player doesn't realize that he's speaking out loud, and it's silly because no one talks out loud for everything. Just they speak on the in their mind. But if you say something for a very story specific near Anna, Anna will comment on it. What are you talking about? And he says, why are you eavesdropping? I'm not eavesdropping. I'm right here. I'm listening to you. So that part, you get self-conscious how silly it is, someone going around and talking to himself out loud, grabbing stuff. So that's the part that we try to add humor to it, but it's very difficult to manage the expectations of the player that is playing a game, wants to touch everything and grab everything, but you have to limit the player, especially if you are playing in a world that you recognize. So when you go to the kitchen, there's a lot of items on the kitchen. So we had to design the game so we had to get rid of all the items that wouldn't make sense. Uh, like if you need to cut a rope, we have to remove all the types of knives. So and at the same time look like a believable kitchen. So a kitchen with no items, it's kind of weird. So you have to carefully place the items that the player won't get interest at all while solving the puzzles. There were many times that we were going to create these puzzles, and there was elements already planted on the scenario that we had to remove because okay, if the player gets this, then he'll probably need this one or think about this to use on another type of item. So remove it. So that's why it's difficult to create a game that's set in our days. Because people recognize everything and they get it's like getting bits at your own ass when you get more grounded and people get okay, so it's grounded, okay, I'll just pick a chair, but you can't pick a chair. It's difficult to manage. Yeah,
Yeah. Have you done playtesting?
yeah, we did play testing with our like our friends. It's
Okay.
just a group of 10 to 15 people. Some had experience with video games, some had experience with point and click, some didn't play anything in their life and they enjoyed it a lot. We got a lot of feedback and we got, uh, I think everything went smoothly apart from a part of the game that we weren't expecting to be difficult to other the players, so we had to change it.
Okay.
Um,
Which chapter?
I think it's in chapter 4,
Okay.
the end of the chapter 4, and people got stuck, and we had to change the game a little bit. And we weren't expecting at all. I think we got a little lucky with the and a little more at ease because we were beta testing the game as long we made it. So chapter 1 went well, 2, 3, and we went 4. Okay, it's gonna go well because people are enjoying it. But it uh, a big wall that we had to change the puzzle mechanics, and from there on, I, things went smoothly. Yeah.
While when you're managing inventory nicely, as you do from chapter
Hmm.
to chapter, you can also playtest the chapters separately, which gives you this ability, I think,
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
nicely. If you have kind of like, it's very difficult to start a chapter in a different game and have 15 items and kind of like
yeah,
as a
yeah, yeah,
player, okay, internalize all the items that I now have and try to do things in a new
yeah.
thing. But
Yeah, especially nowadays because people don't have all the time in the world to play a game, and sometimes they play a game like 1 month later or 2 weeks later,
yeah,
and when you get back to the game again, and you go to the inventory and you have a chicken and piece of wood and you okay, where did I get that? I so we try to get you back in the game, and you have like 3 items or 2 items, or I think the more that you have, it's in one chapter that you have 9 or 8. That's the most that you have at the same time.
yeah. On that note, some of the adventure games now, uh, they try to have like a very detailed journal. What have you done? So that
Hmm.
if a player comes back to a game after
Hmm.
a week, and adventure games are mostly reliant on your knowledge, so you have to kind of, you can't really progress if you don't know what you're doing and what you have done beforehand.
Hmm.
So on that note, what kind of things you have incorporated into Night is Grey, so that apart from the items, so that players that come back after like a week of like after a week of not playing the game can come back quite easily.
Yeah, I think the way that we try to find a way to minimize that type of frustration to get ease in people to get back in the game was divide the game by chapters. So normally in point and click games they tend to go to like you're on an island and you get to go to various locations and they keep adding locations, but we constructed the game in a like an episodic way. So when you're stuck in a place, you can go back and you can go forward. So you know where you came from, and you can't go back. There's a reason to it, but there's only one way that is blocked. So the objective of the game is always basically the same each chapter. You want to go through something. So you want to go to the next chapter. You know how, but you don't know how, but you know where it is. So even if you play for a few hours and you play after 1 month later, you know, okay, I need to get into the cave. That's your objective. So you go around these 5 or 6 scenarios at the most, and the search is constricted to that 5 or 4 places. That's the way we found to ease into the story and to the gameplay. Yeah.
Have you considered adding like a quests to the story, or this is a deliberate decision not to have the quests? Because one of the things that you can help with for, uh, after a player comes back after 2 weeks of non-playing is that, okay, here's my quest, here's to remember what I do. But maybe you just found it not useful if you have it divided in chapters. But have you
Yeah,
considered?
yeah. I think when we did divide it in chapters and we did the playtesting, I think people, because people, our playtesters played like months apart.
Yeah.
I remember that between the first and the second, I think, or just between the second and the third chapter, it was almost like 1 year. And
Okay.
yeah, people, the beta testers didn't have any trouble getting in. Um, and we knew from the start that it we didn't knew like a checklist, and even adding a checklist, it didn't match with the type of story that we were telling, because we didn't want to have like a menu, a side menu where with like checkboxes, or Graham having a note where you can look at it, and because it didn't match the story, it didn't match the character, so we just stripped down from everything. That's why the interface is very clean. It's like just one dot, click on stuff. Um, Even we got a little bit of complaints because we normally in this type of game you go over stuff and you see the name of the highlights. So we added the space bar, which is like a hint mode where you can see all the hotspots. And we got a lot of praise with that because you only can see everything all at once. Um, but we stuck with the idea of not placing the names of it when you go over it, because it breaks immersion. If you are, it reminds you that you are playing a video game. You go over the stuff and say, ah, potted plant. Okay, just click on it, and Graham will say it's a potted plant. It's more um, immersive that way.
Yeah, I think you put a lot of emphasis on this, right? You have
Yeah,
design every little feature to not to be too gamey, to be
yeah.
as much story driven as possible. Let's maybe zoom in a little bit on the story. Um, Throughout the game, Graham has a kind of special humor, like a sense of
Hmm.
humor that is like sometimes, like I would say, neurotic, like
Hmm.
self-defeating, kind of. I was
Yeah,
wondering what are the decisions, like what is the thinking behind this kind of sense of humor to put there?
yeah. It's difficult to talk about this without spoiling the game, but there's the reason that
Yeah.
if you play the game, you understand why he has a self-deprecating humor, and it's a hit or miss when we see on streams playing the game, uh, because it, there are players that start the game and they are looking for a game for fun, and then they reach a character that is very down on himself and very with self-deprecating humor, um, and it's kind of difficult to um, because when you play a game, you tend to see yourself in the shoes of the character that you are playing. And if you're playing a character that is very self-deprecating and very down on himself, you kind to push him back. And that was, we knew about that, and we, because there's a reason to it, which we can't talk about it here, but there's a reason to it. And when you play the game and reach the end, you get, okay, now I understand why he's like this, why he makes jokes like this, and why he's so socially awkward. And that was um, a story part that we wanted to stick with it to till the end, because there were you get a reward for finding in the end why he's like that. Yeah.
Okay. Have you found people? I feel like if you're making a game that is more like art focused than usual, so I had this. I had like the ranking of the Oscars movies. It kind of depends. It rarely is that the movie that is like 10 out of 10 for some person
Mm-hmm.
will win the Oscar, because the Oscars tend to be won by the movies that are 8 out of 10 but for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And 10 out of 10 movies are usually 10 out of 10 for one person, but like 5 people it's like 1 out of 10. And it seems
Yeah.
like The Night is Grey is more in this area of being a 10 out of 10 for some person,
Yeah.
but 1 out of 10 for other people, because it's so different, so unusual in some of the
Yeah.
aspects.
That,
The
it's we knew about this from the start, because it is going to be very divisive, and because of the story, and because I think we told the story that's not usual
conventional,
for
oh
any
yeah.
kind of game, any. Uh, and we knew that we had a good story, and we play along. But I understand it's difficult to for players that tend to go to play this game and find about something else that they were expecting to. They Those are players that don't want to be challenged on this aspect. They want to play a game that they already know what kind of game it is. And there are other players that they think they knew, but they want to be challenged with something creative, something very difficult, very different. And when they play the game, they they got satisfied because it's completely different. Yeah, but it's hard. Yeah, to see um, um, people not enjoying, but at the same time, it's very rewarding when you see a lot of people telling you it's amazing. It's the best point and click they play. It's really rewarding. Yeah, but we knew it was going to be divisive from the start. Yeah.
Okay. um I want to tell you that Hannah is great.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
Hannah is a beacon of hope in this dark world, and it's incredible. Like it's incredible how, like, you're playing as Graham, who is, as we mentioned, like self-deprecating humor, down on himself, but you have this companion, which is like like a beacon of hope, smile,
Hmm.
like a sun shining through these
Yeah,
dark
that was
walls.
the purpose from the beginning, because we wanted to make like a big contrast to Graham. We knew that Graham was going to be very down on himself, so Anna is placed there to be the complete opposite. And we had to be very careful to write a child character into a game, because there are tropes of the child character being like annoying, or you have to care for her, and it's like an escort mission. So we try to avoid that for because our writer Tiago has a niece, and he reflected a lot of conversations he had with her. So um, children had the tendency to be very direct and say something without thinking, and that's the way we wrote Anna. Uh, that's why Graham keeps getting off guard when something she says like, "You're old. Are you a grandpa?" What? I'm not that old. And that's the type of thing that children say. They are not always complaining or whining or being cared of. And Anna is strong. It's very witty and very on the nose and very cheeky. That's the way that we wanted from the start. And and when we see people getting attached to her and say, "Oh, go, it's gonna happens." It's gonna happen something bad for her. It's gonna happen. So we had to manage that expectations and yeah.
Yeah, but that's incredible that Graham can be identified uh as a person caring for her. So like
Mhm.
for the player that is playing the game, it very quickly becomes like Hannah is the goal of the game, right? Like
Yeah,
so that's why I think this juxtaposition is great when you're like, yeah, maybe you're not thinking about yourself as highly,
yeah,
but there's Hannah and you can do like
yeah,
just
exactly.
one
Yeah,
small thing for
yeah,
her
yeah,
and it would be helpful to you. Like you would have some value.
yeah.
This is really great.
That's the purpose. You maybe not like Graham at the start, the character that you are playing, but you like Hannah, so you want to help Hannah.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't want to help Graham at that time, or just he says something very down. Okay, okay, Graham, we'll go. But at least Anna is, like you said, it's the beacon of hope for the game. Yeah,
And Graham has these cool white eyes, like the
yeah,
glasses. This is so cool. How
yeah,
I've seen, I think, a couple of your sketches where of early Graham where it
yeah,
didn't have this,
yeah, yeah.
and just like just made the Graham as a person. Like this is such a cool aspect.
Yeah, it was made to distance even more the player to the character. So if you look at his eyes, or you get more into the character, but if you like put a shield and paint it white with the reflection, it makes even more a barrier to the player. So you get even distant to the main character. It is very unusual for this type of games, because when every time you play a video game you want to get more attached to the main character, but here we play the other way and you get pushed back, but there's a reason for it. Yeah,
Yeah, it was really good. Can we linger a little bit on how the scenes were made? You kind of outlined the 5 steps of making the scenes and
hmm,
the characters, but I don't think I got them mm, properly laid out in my mind. So can you go through one more time and
yeah,
lay
yeah, yeah,
out what are the stages of making scenes?
yeah. We actually had one reviewer. We approached us at in Twitter, or X as you call it these days, about if any scenario was made with the help of AI. And then we interpreted like it's more like I don't know. It was weird for us. It's like a compliment, but the same way it's not a compliment. Uh,
You can choose.
so
You
we had
can
to
choose.
explain him, and he got, oh, okay, no, now that's impressive, because people these days it's gonna be hard for the future for this type of games that they that it's going to be a tool. It's going to be a tool. But if you want to add very specific things to your scenes and have a distinct, very art style, you look at it. Okay, it's not AI because it's very distinct on this part, or the look changes from scene to scene. So it's there's a human error in there. Yeah. So yeah, to the style, we got a lot of praise with the style of the game, because it's quite different. I made the scenes, and it was like is a technique from when they do in cinema, where they do like simple sketches to make a storyboard, and the matte paintings for the backgrounds of the old movies. So we did that approach by just laying around the sketch of the scenario. So in the pencil, going, the house is here, there's a wall here, there's a tree here. Then we made the basic 3D model over it in Blender. So we made like the surface without textures. And we then textured everything in Photoshop. So we painted over all the textures
But in
and make it
2D.
like a painting
But in 2D, you have a
in 2D.
model 3D model in Blender, and
Yeah,
then
we
you get the.
re-render it.
Okay,
Yeah, like
okay,
an image,
okay,
and then the image, we put it on Photoshop. We paint it over. Then we cut the parts that move to make the parallax. Everything in 2D. And then in After Effects, we put those parts on After Effects, and then we made the 3Ds, like swinging, or
okay,
the water moving, and we separate that everything in PNGs, and they put it in the game. Yeah. So the game is running like it's a moving picture. Um, what Unity is rendering, it's frames getting in a sequence for everything. Character, the gram is running 12 frames per second, everything at
all
any
the time,
time,
yeah.
and the scenes are the same with 10 frames per second. There's less 2 frames, so it's constantly moving the same frames. Yeah, it's like this. Yeah.
Okay, okay,
It was very hard to. We made the first one. We think, wow, it looks amazing, but then realized that we had to make like more 80 of them. So
okay, okay.
it was very
Yeah.
difficult.
How would you judge how much of the uh like percentage of work went into making the scenes? Like how big of a
I think,
cost would it be?
yeah, it's more than half the time. I think it it, it was the part that took more of the project. It was
Okay.
the scene, yeah, because uh, with the characters we could recycle them and you reuse them on different stages. There were even stages that like we animated Graham crouching for something, and we realized that okay, he doesn't crouch for anything else. We spent a lot of time making him crouch and look amazing. Now we don't use that animation for
Yeah.
anything else. So we had to design some elements of the puzzles or the scenarios. So just put some sand on the floor. Doesn't mean anything, but just if you click on it, you'll go and crouch, so you can use more of that animation. But the majority of the production was on the scenes. Yeah, because the
Okay.
scenes set the tone and drive the story, and then the other part is the animation of the characters. But you get used to it because you're keeping saying the same character over and over, but not the scenes, because the scenes change constantly. It was, yeah, it was are very time consuming. Probably more than 60% of the project went to the scenes. Yeah.
Okay. And how about the music? I find the music, especially when I think especially when you finish the chapter one and you
Hmm.
begin chapter two, there's a change in music, and
Yeah.
after like some revelations that happen, like the music complements the visual art style of the game
Yeah.
in such a good way, and I know you mentioned that your brother did the music, right?
Hmm.
Have how I think you mentioned earlier before this conversation that your brother didn't have a musical experience beforehand, or
No, he had musical experience. My brother
okay,
had a band for many
okay,
years, and even had a small um, music company. Uh, but he kept making music for years and years, so he had lots of experience. But he didn't have experience of making music for games.
okay,
So it's very different type of um, logic making into the music composition, because when you make a music that doesn't loop or doesn't have to change for for a certain part of the game, so it was very difficult to manage that, and he had a lot of challenges to make it work. because I even went harder on him and to give him a little more challenge because I wanted to make the music change slightly when in depending on the scene that you are. So when there's a main music and when you are talking to Anna, the music changes gradually to another type of music, and there's more different instruments, and you go near the wolves. It's the same music, so they are adaptive to another type of music, but it's the same music, but it changes organically through the chapters, and that was quite a challenge. Yeah,
Okay.
he didn't only did the music and composed. He played all the instruments. It's
Oh,
very yeah, and there are a lot of them. Uh, yeah, and he recorded everything in our little studio.
nice.
And
Okay.
he did also all the foley, apart from some little sounds that we couldn't find, and we had to use the free sounds.
Yeah.
But I remember he calling me like 2 a.m. in the night, finding I found the amazing creaking door. Look at it, and he makes me a video chat. Look at it, and the part, yeah, yeah, it's amazing. I want to sleep. It's amazing. Record it, okay? But he was very excited to making the foley for the game, and it shows because the foley we got a lot of praise about the foley because the sound is very crisp
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
very specific items, and people tend to in this type of game to just don't make any noise or make the assumption that people know the noise it makes or just don't make a noise at all. But we from the start we wanted to set a very specific mood from the game, so music and sound was very important from the start. Yeah,
Yeah. And also, like, music and sound is such an underappreciated
yeah,
aspect.
yeah,
Like, only
it's
when
very
it doesn't work you realize, and if it works, you're kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's supposed to look like this. It's like,
yeah, yeah,
it's,
exactly. But at the same time, it drives you and gets more emotion to the scene that you want to get more emotion of. There's a particular scene that we we can talk about it,
yeah,
but we made the scene without music, and we were waiting for Bruno to make the scene, and we were very doubt of if the scene would work. So we made the scene, we played it. There wasn't music because we were waiting for it, and for like 1 or 2 months, we are questioning about it. Okay, but it's not working. It's very
yeah,
weird because it's not. It, it doesn't have the impact that we want. But when we place the music that Bruno made it and put it on the game, it clicked because okay, now it works. It's
yeah,
so weird. People tend to disregard music or the composition of video games. It's so weird. Because, to me, it was always important because I I think I listen more to video game soundtracks or music from movies than actual real bands. So it was very important for me. I think he did a major job. It's very for someone it didn't make any music for any game. It's it's a very good start. Yeah,
yeah, that's great. The sound and the music in the game is great.
yeah.
Okay, let's get into more retrospective mode. Looking back at The Night is Grey, um, and 7 years of development, what would you change? What would you do differently?
Uh,
Like next, like let's leave Night is Grey aside, but for the next project, what would be like the
yeah, we are thinking about the next project, and um, I think we want to go. I can talk about it much,
okay,
but I think we are going in a different direction.
okay,
Yeah. So things that we are going to make. We learn a lot with this game because we didn't made any game before, uh, and we got all the good feedback and going expand on it. And the bad feedback, I think we are going to remove it from the next game or adapt it to something that make it work better. So we are changing that into the new project if we make it. But I think what we would change. I think it's weird to talk about it because the big hurdles on this project was to learn from scratch everything, and that's why it took so much time. But now that we know how to make it, we can shorten that time span for, I think, we hope, like 3 years or four. We can shorten it shorter because all the big chunk of time from the 90s gray was learning. Everyone was learning. Teresa was learning how to animate. I was learning how to make the puzzles and to how to make the scenes. Bruno was learning how to make good loops on music and experimenting with new instruments and sounds. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think we can shorten with and reuse the knowledge that we gain, and reuse um, the feedback to it we get from our fans and the players. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, can I assume then that the next project is also in this genre of adventure game?
It's gonna be um, a mix.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So mm, it we can say it's in this same genre, but we're gonna mix with another genre so we
Okay.
can make it fresh and
Nice.
try to gather more type of players.
Okay. Where people can follow your work?
So you can follow us on Twitter or X and Discord. We are there. You can email us for any question from our website. We are not very active on TikTok or Instagram, but we put something there from time to time. But if you want to reach us or get the juicy news, it's probably going to be on Twitter. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for the discussion.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
It was great. It was great to
Yeah.
learn about Night is Grey. And for
Yeah.
everybody who is listening, like you can count how many times we've been doing. Well, we can't say about because this would be
Yeah,
spoiled the
yeah.
game.
It's difficult to
So
make interviews with
yeah,
because the game relies too much on the story, and
yeah,
it's very difficult ne- to not tell anything about the story. It's
yeah,
really, you have to play it.
yeah.
Yeah,
This speaks to how the story is great and
yeah. It speaks
how
volume. Yeah,
yeah. Thank you so much and take
yeah.
care.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.